What's going on there, folks? Good evening. It's the Earthmaster here on this Wednesday night, December 14th, 2022. It is about 8:20 p.m. here along the West Coast in California. Latest quake shows a 1.5 up into Alaska, but notice quite a bit of activity ramping up here around Taiwan with a 6.0 earthquake coming in just within the past few minutes. Let's go ahead and check out the latest activity here. Across the map, USGS not reporting that earthquake yet from the Taiwan area. That is being reported by the EMSC model. 6.0 earthquake right around the Taiwan region about 16 minutes ago. 8 kilometers in depth. That was followed up just a couple minutes later by a 4.6 aftershock within that same region. So things kind of ramping up here today. Around the western portion here of the Philippine plate. Also some activity, of course, up into the Alaska area. The Aleutian Trench, actually. 6.3 coming in. A little bit of an upgrade there. All right, so let's see what we got going on. A whole lot of activity here, not only in the Space Weather Department, but the Earthquake Department as well. We'll get to the space weather here in just a little bit. Going to start off up here into the Aleutian Islands area, around the Rat Islands. Seen that 6.3 coming in, 83 kilometers deep earlier this morning time period. That was an upgrade from a 6.1, originally a 6.1, but upgraded there to a 6.3. Since then, not a whole lot of activity. We did see a 3.5, a little bit more shallower upstream, about 70 kilometers deep. So watch this Aleutian Trench. We do see a lot of activity here. Historically, far as major earthquakes go. This region really hasn't seen too much activity here in recent times. Last year we did see an 8-pointer in here. I keep mentioning about seeing some activity here, but literally we haven't really seen anything above 4.5 in this region here over the past month or so. But I don't know if that's, I don't know if there's enough strain built up here in this region for any large megaquakes, so possibly might be building up over here. I do know the Crow-Kamchatka Trench is on the hook there for something big soon. Okay, the rest of Alaska, a little bit of activity out around Trident Volcano once again. Getting in on a little bit of swarming. This has been ongoing here, off and on for a little bit over the past couple months. About 12 earthquakes or so within the vicinity of the Trident Volcano. And some activity across the Cook Inlet through the Anchorage region and up towards the Alaska Range area, seeing some small microquakes. Waiting on the update here from the USGS in regards to that Taiwan earthquake. The Cascadia subduction zone down here at the southern end, seeing a little bit of uptick today, including a 2.4 here just earlier this evening time period at 26 kilometers deep. Now, the depth of these earthquakes here will give a good indicator of what zone this has taken place in. And no doubt that's within the subduction zone down there, about 26 kilometers deep. The southern end, the very southern end here of the Cascadia megathrust area, seeing some activity today. Also offshore, we had a couple earthquakes, including that 4.9. into the Blanco fracture zone. That one was coming in early this morning, about 4 o'clock or so. Some activity also further south and to the west of the Cascadia megathrust here. Seeing a 3.0 just before noontime, right at the Gorda plate here, the Gorda escarpment region. Up into the Pacific Northwest, a little bit of activity across the area today, including a couple small microquakes around the region of the Mount Rainier area. Yellowstone National Park, nothing showing up here. About the time, let me go ahead and make sure we got the latest map here. About the time that the 6-pointer kicked off, 6.3 there in Alaska this morning, that triggered a 2.5 in Yellowstone, but that was a phantom earthquake. I don't know if you guys seen it or not. It did show up on the Earthquake 3D globe and the USGS as a preliminary earthquake report, but that was a false reading from this large 6.3 that struck in the Aleutian Trench. Now that reading up here, the 6.3, is being shown And I don't think, I don't believe there was any 2.5. I firmly believe that was just a phantom earthquake, kind of like they call it there. Otherwise, we would definitely see the indicator there of that 2.5. But that 6.3 showed up pretty nicely across the area. There was a secondary quake, it looks like, possibly in the mix as well. Either that or a long duration earthquake. The USGS only showing, and by the way, it looks like they've downgraded that Taiwan earthquake from a 6-pointer to a 5.9 currently. But it looks like there was a secondary earthquake there in the mix, but I'm not seeing it here listed on the USGS map, nor the EMSC model. These guys only showing one earthquake up there as well. Let me double check and make sure here. There was that 6.3 in the Rat Islands earlier this morning, about 9, almost 10 hours ago. So hard to say exactly what that secondary reading is here. If it was a 2.5, it would be stronger somewhere and more noticeable, I would say, across the region, and I'm just not seeing it. A little bit of activity, some kind of weird activity going on outside of the Yellowstone Park area. Kind of hard to say exactly what it is, although it's not really showing up at local seismograph stations here across the region. This is at Hebgen Lake, the little odd activity. Kind of looks like some type of outside interference, possibly. Either way, if it was earthquake activity, I think we would see that regionally across all the graphs. This is some very localized activity here at this station. But again, it's possible it could be some type of interference. If it was earthquake activity here around the region, we would see it showing up across other seismograph stations, which I'm not seeing it. Okay, now further to the southwest, there's that earthquake there just off the coast of Taiwan. No tsunami statement with that. Originally coming in as a 6.0, downgraded to a 5.9 earthquake, 11 kilometers deep. Now, this is definitely an uptick in earthquake activity, I would say, because when I started off this update this morning, first update of the day, man, things were awfully quiet. We're kind of wondering where it was going to hit. But we kind of hit up north, and then it's hitting to the west here right now around the Philippine plate. Things kind of kicking up here a little bit. It looks like there was 4.7 earlier today as well, within the last hour, actually, near the Molucca Sea, further down south. That one about 97 kilometers deep. Got to remember here, these deeper earthquakes not only trigger some earthquake movement at the subduction zones, but you know, other regional areas as well towards the surface. Just enough stress up here off the coast of Taiwan. Pretty shallow earthquake, 11 kilometers there for that 5.9. All right, let's go ahead and bounce here to the back to the California area. Some movement down south here showing up within the last hour. Some very small microquakes, but nothing really spectacular going on here across the southern portion of California. No major swarms down there. A little bit of activity across Ridgecrest and up north here, of course, around the Clear Lake volcanic field. But things just not super active in California, just kind of common. Similar to what we would say on a typical Alaska day, like we're seeing up there right now. Just typical movement across that major plate boundary area. Across regions of Texas here and Oklahoma region. Let me see what we got here. Looks like a couple earthquakes there in Oklahoma today. Some very small ones earlier this morning as well. One earthquake outside the New Madrid zone, a 2.1 near Menard, Arkansas. That one was actually from last night, so no further renewed activity across the region. Throughout areas of the Caribbean plate, Caribbean region. Typical earthquake activity here across the Puerto Rico region right now. Latest one shows a 2.2 in our swarming area. Very typical in that area. Further down south, South America region, not showing a whole lot of activity. A quick glance here at the earthquake 3D globe here shows a couple smaller quakes here pretty recently, and some of those somewhat deep into the Peru-Chile Trench. So A little bit of swarming here in this plate boundary bend. Kind of right here where this one earthquake's being reported. 4.2 down there underneath Argentina, 273 kilometers deep. So some aftershock. Well, aftershocks, foreshocks, however you want to look at it there at the middle section here of the Peru-Chile Trench. Hawaii? Well, what do we got going on out here at the Big Island? Most of the movement confined up here to Kilauea Volcano and the Pahala area. Now, let me see what we got here for the latest activity here from the USGS volcano site. I still know everything's neutral there across Mauna Loa and Kilauea Volcano. Not really seeing any major updates, but we will check the latest update here that was put out this morning time period, about 7 o'clock. There's no current incandescence and no lava movement there in the Fissure 3 vent. Things are done for the most part right now. Tremor, there's no longer any tremor. The significance of the continuing inflation while the flow field is inactive is not yet clear. So those are the professionals right there, right? That's a professional with the USGS there stating that statement. The significance of the continuing inflation while the flow field is inactive is not yet clear. I still think there's a 50-50 chance that something is blocked down there, and we'll find out here soon if that is the case. Now, a lot of folks asking me, well, if it's blocked, wouldn't we see earthquake activity? Well, let's go ahead and check out the earthquake activity or lack of activity up here at the seismograph station. So let me show you guys real quick where we're at up here on the map, Mauna Loa, right? And I've been checking out this station right here around the eastern flank here, northeastern flank area. And there's some earthquake activity. There's a pretty strong one right there, local. But we're also getting these weird readings coming across here that are, I don't know what they are. I mean, it looks like a intense swarm of very small microquakes across the area of the top of the summit of Mauna Loa. Now, it's hard to say what it is. I've never seen anything like that prior to the eruption. This kind of started as about the time when it paused, or at least when it subsided there, when it stopped erupting. So I don't know. It's a little odd to see this activity. The other station down south here shows about the same thing. We're still getting those little spikes. So I know it's not just interference at that local seismograph station. This is definitely legit activity taking place. And the more that I look at it and the more I review windy conditions, that this is not wind movements whatsoever. Sometimes we get these wind interference, but the wind has died down. Everything's moving along, but the readings there are still there. So it's something is under pressure here, it looks like. There's a lot of small microquakes across the area. Now, just because we're not seeing a whole bunch of big ones doesn't mean that this whole area isn't under some surface stress out here. There's quite a bit. There's a lot of earthquake activity there, folks. USGS not showing it. I didn't get a chance to email them about it. Got a busy week. This is finals week for me, and I have so many exams due tomorrow. And not to mention the giveaway I was supposed to do tomorrow. So we're going to push off, just FYI, real quick, we're going to push off the member drawing till Saturday. Okay? So if you're not a member, you have a couple more days to get in. Saturday, roughly sometime around noontime, we'll be doing the drawing for the members and give away some prizes. It's just been too busy here for me and Missy Mimi's lately to get all of this done this week. But the USGS not reporting anything here, folks. And I showed you guys here a lot of earthquake activity. Okay, these are very small ones. We know what we're looking for when it comes to earthquakes. This is much bigger, but it's not being listed up here across the map. Possibly could have been the 3.8 maybe. Let's see. I thought I could have swore I'd seen that as a 3.8. 3.3. This was at, let's see what this UTC time is here. UTC time of 21:45. So just let me look here. 21:45. Okay, so that's it. 21:45. That's going to be the 3.3 in Pahala. But some of these other earthquakes here are definitely localized, and there's just a bunch of them, folks. So I'm uncertain, and obviously it sounds, the wording that these folks are putting out on the update there, as far as the uncertainty as to why the tilt is still raising. And in fact, let's check that tilt here real quick. See what we got going on up here at the summit. For the tilt meter, still going up. We are still rising here. Now I wish I could go back here and look at previous eruption, because that blue line right there has been going, it's been inflating here. A pretty, well, not super huge inflation, but a definitely noticeable inflation rate since the eruption pretty much stopped or completely dwindled there at Mauna Loa. So what that means, obviously, they don't know. I'm not 100% certain, but I think there's a little bit going on there that we don't know about below. And whether that's a blockage, possibly. What the blockage would mean, who knows? But this area does see some explosive eruptions. I can't get the USGS to note it. They won't mention it. But it's been there. There's been explosive eruptions here at Mauna Loa in the past. Not recent past, that's for sure. But it does have history of explosive eruptions. Don't believe me? Check it out. Mauna Loa, within the past couple thousand years, they've seen some explosive eruptions. Not this just spewing of lava out of cracks, but more so blowing up, so to speak. So we'll keep an eye on it, folks. We'll definitely watch it pretty closely. All right, let's see what else we got here. Just got another earthquake here on my phone, a 4.3 Japan region there from the EMSC model. So activity obviously looks like we're shooting towards the Western Pacific right now. Teeter-totter effect seems to be in full swing here around the Western Pacific. You know, not only with this 5.9, but we started to see the activity earlier this morning up there around the Aleutian Trench. Southern California, as noted, there's not a whole lot going on. Not a whole lot of worry at the moment. There's no major swarms upticking there in Southern Cal for now. Let's see what we got for New Zealand area. Wait, let me check here. What's this one? Myanmar area around noon. Seen a 5.0. That was at the it was around noontime or so, inland off the plate boundary, about 10 kilometers deep. Let me check out something real quick before I get into New Zealand. There's that 4.3 there north of Tokyo. Looks like it's about 10 kilometers deep. A little swarm around the Indonesia and Philippines area. 3.5 South Island area of New Zealand. So let's see what we got going on down here. Nothing showing up across the USGS globe, or model I should say. The GeoNet servers here, see what we have. 6 hours ago, 2.1. Well, let's check out all of them. See what we have here. 5 minutes ago, 1.7. 2.1 South Island area. Where's that? I know there was a couple bigger earthquakes here. 5 hours ago, 2.8, 3.5 5 hours ago. So a little bit of an uptick. Nothing major though. I mean, we can definitely verify that with the drums out here and see what's being recorded. There's not a lot. Taupo volcano, super volcano. They're pretty quiet here, folks. Nothing. I'm not seeing any seismic activity there across the area. Little spike of one earlier, almost 24 hours ago, but aside from that, things pretty minimal there around the New Zealand area currently. All right, tremor map here tonight, folks. We're going to get into solar weather because that's kind of the big topic in solar news right now. 113 epicenters here of tremor. Again, Medford, Oregon, making the map for about the third or fourth night in a row. This is tremor activity occurring underneath this region, the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. Building up strain, but I don't know if it's enough to produce a 9-pointer out here. It's been over 322 years since the last full rupture. Also some movement up north around the Vancouver Island range, north of Victoria. Either way, a little bit of uptick occurring there along the Cascadia. Solar weather activity, again, as I mentioned, a big story going on. And we've had a massive amount of M flares. I'm not even joking. I can't remember the last time I seen this many N flares. N flares? When did we had N flares? M flares over basically a 24-hour period. This is pretty incredible here, folks. Let me bring this up here and see if you guys can count with me, okay? Now, let me zoom in just a little bit here. Stand by for a second and bear with me. Now, an M flare is within the M flare category. This is the X-ray flare class. Now, this is going to be between these two lines here. And the watts and stuff over here, I don't really chat about. There's no need to mention that. We're worried about the flare level right now. So, looking at this map, we can count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, I'm going to count this one right here as a 7 one because the reason why is because it peaked out here, coming back down, and then there was another disturbance there in the magnetic structure of the sunspot that produced another M flare. So that's actually 2 M flares within this little peak. Now that happened another time, probably within one of these, maybe a couple of these, but we're going to count these again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and possibly in here we could have seen some more. See these dips right here as we kind of zoom in into this area. There's a peak right here, a peak right there, and another peak. So that could actually be counted as 3. So we're probably around 15 M flares or somewhere around there, maybe even higher, just looking at that chart. So pretty crazy activity, a lot of weather, solar weather activity ramping up right now. And currently, it looks like we're kind of peaking up here a little bit more. With possibly maybe another upper C flare or M flare. I'm noticing the radio blackout here with the D layer absorption map centered mostly over Western Australia and Indonesia area. This is going to have an effect on the high frequency range, blackout conditions there. But all this sunspot activity is great if you're trying to shoot some skip. Skip meaning CB radio, ham radio. Sunspots have a dramatic effect on radio frequency here on Earth. Quite a bit. I remember, I don't know if I mentioned this before or not. I'm a pretty big FM radio fan. And I have been since I was a kid. And I've heard skip come in. And I call it skip because we get these stations that are coming in here in California that are broadcasting from areas of Texas. I've listened to Nebraska stations here in California on the FM dial when skip conditions are coming in. It's kind of cool. You tune into a certain radio frequency, 93.5, which we don't really have here in my area, and I'm picking up like a Nebraska rock station. And it's coming in clear as day, thousands of miles away. FM radio doesn't do that. FM radio only sticks to about, what, maybe at the most 100 miles on your FM dial. But under skip conditions, kind of like a mirror. It shoots those frequencies that are transmitted from a tower and kind of mirrors them thousands of miles away. It happens on FM radio, CB radio, ham radio, short wave, all sorts of cool stuff. I love it. That's unfortunately the FCC can't control that. That's Mother Nature right there saying, you know what? Let's mix it up a little bit, have some fun. But anyway, a lot of activity kicking up here, folks, right now. 3163, 3165. Most of this activity is coming from 3165, and as you can see it here, this looks like one of the latest maps. Let's see, 0436. Yeah, that's pretty recent, I would say. Yeah, 0436. That's just like a few minutes ago here for UTC time on the 15th. As you can see, this thing's brightening up like crazy. That's another flare kicking off. That thing has produced pretty much all of those M flares that we counted, roughly about 15 M flares. And the threat level is much more appropriate for this type of event. Obviously, 99% chance of a C flare. M flare is very conservative there. It's 75% chance for an M flare, and X flare remains elevated. When we see this type of M flare popcorn, so to speak, I mean 15 M flares over like a 24-hour period, there's going to be an X flare pretty soon, possibly. And majority of it, at least possibility, is going to be coming from the 3165 sunspot that I showed you here. Looking at the magnetic structure, everything looks back to normal. The SDO site is currently active, and this is the latest imagery here, showing some magnetic instability here with this sunspot, getting a lot of, notice these blues, greens building up here on this side with the close proximity of the orange and reds and yellows. That's creating this dynamic setup here for the massive amount of M flares that we've seen. Also, don't let your guard down about this one. This one's turning into the Earth view, getting that same type of setup here. It looks like it may be building up a little bit, getting a little bit of instability there with the magnetic structure. So we'll watch these two ones, and as noted here on the SolarHam site, those two are the ones to watch. 3163 that I just showed you harbors a beta gamma class, 40% chance for a C flare from that. M flare at 10, but the big one is 3165. That's the big sunspot and the most unstable one right now, creating the instability. 75% chance for a C flare, 50% chance for an M flare, 10% chance for an X flare, it looks like. So many sunspots, but the ones to watch right now are the ones mentioned and in the red. And obviously we're seeing a couple more sunspots or flares popping up right now as we speak. Not for sure how big it's going to be, but when the show's on, and this is kind of the show right here, this is a lot of popcorn popping up here. Got to watch for that X flare probability very soon, I think. Yeah, these guys are having fun with this too. They're talking about all the sunspots here, or at least the flares that are mentioned. Now over 10 M flares detected, and the region is now considered a threat for an isolated major X flare. Woohoo! I love it. It's party time. X flare. It is no longer directly facing Earth, so anything flare-wise will be geo-effective because it only takes seconds for the activity to affect up in the ionosphere and the areas above the surface here to affect radio frequency. And the majority of the time definitely is within that sunlit side of the Earth. That's where you're going to have all the radio frequency blackouts and whatnot. But say, for example, the 3165 does produce a massive CME and X flare. We'll feel the effects of Earth here, or effects of the X flare here on Earth almost immediately, as far as the D-layer absorption map goes. But any CME will not be Earth directed because of this position here on the sun. It will be blasted off much away, well away from Earth. In the direction that we're not facing, obviously. 3163 or any of these other ones that produce any subsequent CME will be Earth-directed and would be geo-effective. But as far as an X-flare goes, we'll experience the effects of it far as certain events go, but we're not going to expect any major auroras from a sunspot that's facing away from Earth. Let's see here. Far as the forecast goes, for the 3-day geomagnetic forecast, looks pretty green across the board. So we need a large CME, Earth-directed, or a large coronal hole with some high-speed solar wind stream charged particles to produce some forecast conditions here that could be elevated. And right now, it's not looking likely. So very minimal conditions there across the board. There is a little bit of activity kicking up there at the higher latitudes, but the KP index right now just shows around the 2 range or so. A little bit of separation here between these lines, indicating some BT, BZ interference, BZ pointing south, allowing some of that normal solar wind stream to flow in, creating some of those conditions there at the higher latitudes. But as far as any major swarm goes, it's not really forecasted there, folks. Oh, okay, let's see what else we got. Oh, man, that's just a lot. Crazy amount. I think that's about it. Let me check the earthquake map here real quick again. There is the 5.9. USGS still hasn't chimed in on the, oh, what is that one over here? 4.3. It takes them a little while. I really wish they would be a little bit more quicker, but, you know, whoever the director is, maybe they could jump on that. I've chatted with quite a few geologists and whatnot from the USGS, and they're always pretty nice, very nice, when it comes to answering any questions and stuff I have. But man, their preliminary, or at least their earthquake catalog reporting, is not all that quick. Maybe that's something maybe they're more concerned with accuracy than they are with quickness, and sometimes that kind of counts, right? Remember a while back, about a few months back, maybe it's been over a year, the EMSC model put out a what was it, like a 8.1 down here south of Tokyo. It was a phantom earthquake. It was just a false reading, but the EMSC thought it was a real earthquake. USGS didn't put it out. EMSC model did, if I remember correctly. And EMSC tends to put out anything and everything, which sometimes could be good and also sometimes could be bad, because they're putting out, you know, whatever reports are being reported out there. And if it is a false quake, they remove it eventually. But, you know, seeing an 8.1 out there on the map, I remember doing an update. I was like, yeah, there's an 8.1 occurring out here south of Tokyo. And I went and tried to do an update on it, and I started looking at these graphs here. I was like, man, I don't see anything. I'm not seeing any 8.1 across any of these seismograph stations here. And we would see that, obviously, across any of them. And so I was like, this has got to be, something's got to be wrong here. It's got to be a inaccurate report. And sure enough, it was. But the EMSC model put out that notification that there was an 8.1 in this area. And that happened about a year or so ago, maybe a little bit longer. I don't know, if time's flying by. So the USGS might just be on that tune, you know, that little tune that they tend to go with, of accuracy, more so than quickness. Because sometimes when you're in a hurry, what happens when you're in a hurry? You make mistakes. Things happen when you're in a hurry. Doesn't matter if it's in traffic, you're running, shopping, you know, things always take place. That's why I kind of like to slow down. Life is all about accuracy. That's a good word. I like that. So maybe that's what they're into. That's just kind of my assumption. All right, guys. Let's see what else we got out here. Nothing going on across the Atlantic currently. And then let's check this out here. Nothing showing up across any of the agencies across the Atlantic Ocean. Looks pretty calm and clear. And yeah, so with all this activity, obviously we need to pay attention here to the Western Pacific. That's kind of where it's building up at currently. From Alaska, Aleutian Trench westward here. In between these 2 points, we're noticing a little bit of uptick, 4.3. And of course, the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, that is my super watch zone for the possibly the next mega quake out there. We'll keep an eye on that area. All right, guys, what do we got here? Oh, man, I made that over 30 minutes. So, again, real quick, the drawing is postponed until Saturday. And that is because we have a tremendous amount of stuff going on here on this end, me and Miss Mimi's do. So, apologize for the lateness, but Saturday, we'll do that members drawing only. We have a little bit more time. We won't have the kids. It just kind of works out a little bit better. We're not having a whole bunch of exams on top of everything. Sometimes our plates can get a little bit over full, and I don't want to rush it. I want to do it right, and that's when we'll do it this Saturday, probably around noontime or so. We'll get the drawing going for members only, and make sure you get in. Make sure you guys get in. I'm trying to figure out how to... I got a YouTube notification, or a notification here from YouTube on my email, and it chats about here. I kind of looked it over, but I was looking at, obviously through the YouTube Creators Program, they're talking about sharing the joy of your channel membership with gift memberships. So I was trying to figure out how to do gift memberships, because I was going to give out some memberships here this month for Christmas. I was going to pick 10 people and give away a free month membership here to 10 people, but I can't figure out how to do it. I've looked across their instructions, so I don't know if I'm eligible, but they sent me this email stating that I am. So it says, the Earthmaster, grow your channel memberships with gifting this season. Tell fans about the gifting, start the gifting spree, celebrate the gifters, engage with new members, and I'm just not seeing it. I looked, and I'm not seeing that. But if I figure it out, I will be giving away 10 free memberships out there to 10 people. And most likely, it will be people that are on the live stream here. And we'll get that going, but I gotta figure out how. Sometimes, I don't know, maybe it's just something little that I'm overlooking, but I will try to get to it and give those away before Christmas here. Christmas got about 10 days or so coming up. All right, guys, I'm going to jump off here. Enough chatting. What do we got? 3.2 working its way westward. See how the activity kind of just goes with the flow. Westward pressure movement. All right, guys, we'll catch you a little bit later on tomorrow sometime. Have a good one. Peace out.